الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Is my voice audible, Ya Ahmed?
Yes.
Right. We'll start, inshallah, with first of all that we can say that we have finished, alhamdulillah, all the principles regarding the names of Allah. And then we started with the principles regarding the attributes. And the first principle that we discussed last time, which is a great principle, that is the principle to say that all the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are attributes of perfection, are attributes of perfection. There is no deficiency in them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes, it does not have except what is a perfect and the ultimate attribute to the Almighty Azza wa Jalla. Now we're coming to the second principle, and that is, yeah, Ahmed?
The second principle concerning Allah's attributes. Knowledge of Allah's attributes is more expansive than knowledge of His names.
Right. That's the principle. الصفات أوسع من باب الأسماء. The attributes are more wider than the names. That's obvious, because we know that the names, each name contains an attribute. So if we just stick to the attributes to the names, we have definitely equal attributes to the name, but we have more. So each name entails an attribute. So if each name entails attributes, so the minimum of attributes is going to be equalized into what? The names, but we have more. We have attributes, but we're not names. Because not each attribute necessary you could make a name out of it. Because the name is, we said, al-husna. It has to be, first of all, perfect and also mentioned by the Almighty for Himself as a name. Fadl, what did he say, the Imam Ibn Uthaymeen?
Knowledge of Allah's attributes is more expansive than knowledge of His names, since each one of His names includes an attribute, as has preceded in the third principle concerning Allah's names. This is also the case since some of the attributes are connected to Allah's actions, and there is no end to the actions of Allah, just as there is no end to His statements. Allah the Exalted has said, وَلَوْ أَنَّمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ مِنْ شَجَرَةٍ أَقْلَامٌ وَالْبَحْرُ يَمُدُّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِهِ سَبْعَةُ أَبْحُرٍ مَا نَفِدَتْ كَلِمَاتُ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. If every tree on earth was a pen, and the sea was extended 7 times over and used as ink, the words of Allah would still not be finished. Verily, Allah is Almighty or wise.
Right. So we can see that how the attributes are much more than the names is that the attributes also include the attributes of Allah's actions. And you cannot derive a name from Allah's actions. So for example, from Allah's attributes regarding the actions, that He descended. You cannot say as a name the descender. Or He comes. You cannot just make a name the comer. Or He goes and He the goer. Or He takes, then He the taker. So those attributes linked to the actions of Allah have no end for them. And there's so many mentioned in the Quran. There's so many mentioned.
I don't think we're recording. I can't see it on my screen.
Oh dear. Too late, aren't you?
Very late.
Very late. I'll tell you what, to start from the beginning. The recording is more important.
Okay.
Fadl.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى من تبع هداهم إلى يوم الدين. Today on the 15th of Muharram 1446, which coincides with the 21st of July 2024. This is the 5th class of Al-Qawa'id al-Muthla by Imam Ibn Uthaymeen, may Allah have mercy upon him. We've reached page 65 in the translation of our book, and we've reached the second principle concerning Allah's attributes. Knowledge of Allah's attributes is more expansive than knowledge of His names. Knowledge of Allah's attributes is more expansive than knowledge of His names, since each one of His names includes an attribute, as has preceded in the third principle concerning Allah's names.
Stop.
This is also...
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. As we have said, and this is a repetition because we did not start the recording until about 2 minutes late or 3 minutes late, that we have discussed all the principles regarding the names, and then we come to the attributes regarding the attributes, the principles regarding the attributes, and the principle regarding the name, finish them. First principle of the attribute that we discussed, that all the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are to be sifatu kamal, attributes of perfection. There is no deficiency in them whatsoever. So it has to be, cannot be a deficient or something which does not indicate that Allah is the perfect. And we come into the second principle, that Allah's names are not as wide as Allah's attributes. Allah's attributes is more encompassing, because the names of Allah are the attributes also of Allah. Each name contains maybe one, at least one or more of an attribute. So if we stuck to the one attribute to one name, the minimum attribute is going to be equal to the names of Allah. The minimum number of attributes of Allah that would be equal to the number of the names of Allah, because as I said, each name contains an attribute. But we know that some names could contain more than one attribute. And also we have attributes which is not mentioned as a name. So we have now the attributes that are linked to the actions of Allah. Go ahead, Ahmed.
This is also the case in some of the attributes are connected to Allah's actions, and there is no end to the actions of Allah, just as there is no end to His statements. Allah the Exalted has said,
English translation, please.
and if every tree on earth was a pen, and the sea was extended 7 times over and used as ink, the words of Allah would still not be finished. Verily Allah is Almighty, All-Wise.
Right, so just mention the translation because we just mentioned the ayah just about 5 minutes ago. And for the sake of the time, we say that the names cannot be derived from an attribute regarding an action. So, an actions of Allah, they are endless. There's no limit for them. Allah describes Himself that He descends, and also describes Himself descended. We can't call Him the ascender or the descender. Also, Allah Azza wa Jal describes Himself is the one who comes and the one who takes. We can't say He's the comer or He's the taker, and so on and so forth. So let's just give some example from Imam Ibn Rufayn. Yes.
From the examples of this are the following attributes of Allah: coming, going, seizing, taking, striking, etc.
So we can't derive comer, goer, taking, seizer, and so on. So we can't take these names out of these attributes. Further.
The attributes cannot be enumerated, as Allah the Exalted has said,
وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ.
and when your Lord has come.
Also He said, هَلْ يَنظُرُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَأْتِيَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي ظُلَالٍ مِّنَ الْغَمَامِ.
Are they waiting for anything other than Allah to come to them in the shadows of the clouds?
So He had called, He comes to them. So it's not. So He comes to them as an attribute, but we can't call Him the comer. Also Allah He said, فَأَخَذَهُمُ اللَّهُ بِذُنُوبِهِمْ.
So Allah sees them because of their sins.
So He can't be the Caesar as well, because it's an attribute. Also Allah He said, وَيُمْسِكُ السَّمَاءَ أَن تَقَعَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ.
And He holds back the skies so that they do not fall down upon this earth except by His permission.
We don't call Him the holder. So that's an attribute. The attributes are more than the names. Also Allah He said, إِنَّ بَطْشَ رَبِّكَ لَشَدِيدٌ.
Verily, the striking of your Lord is a severe one.
Also He said, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُكُمُ الْعُسْرَ.
Allah wants ease for you, and He does not want any difficulty for you.
So here we can't call Him the one who is al-Battash, or He is the one al-Murid, because He says Yurid. He's a sifa, Yurid, that means He intends to. Okay? So that's all the attributes. You can't call them names. So the attributes are wider than the names. Also the Prophet said, Ya Ahmed?
Prophet said, our Lord descends to the lowest heaven.
And that's in Hadith Sahih Imam Muslim. The Prophet of Allah, he said, Allah descends down in the last third of every night. So he descends, and that's an attribute. But we don't call it the descender. Go ahead.
So we describe Allah the Exalted with these attributes in the way that they are reported in the text, and we do not ascribe the names to Him based on them. For example, we do not say that the following are from Allah's names: Al-Ja'i or Al-Ati.
No translation to that?
Just in brackets, the one who comes.
Yeah, please, can you translate?
We do not say He's the one that comes, the Caesar, the withholder, the striker, the one who wants, the descending one, etc. We do not attribute these to Him as names, even though we have been informed that they are His attributes, and we describe Him with them.
Okay, well done. So this is the second principle, understood for you guys. You remember when I started with this, I said we drew 3 circles: names, and attributes, and akhbar, which is Allah tells about Himself. It's not a name, it's not an attribute. So Allah, for example, He is mawjood, He is what? Existing. That's an attribute. Okay? That's something that Allah telling about Himself. Allah is a shape, thing. It's not an attribute. But Allah is basically He's telling about Himself, thing. So we said the names, and then the attributes, and the akhbar. Every name is an attribute and akhbar. Every attribute is an attribute and a khabar, but not every khabar is an attribute or to be a name. And not every attribute is a name. Okay, so the inside circle is the little one, the minor one is the name. Okay, so we have less names than attributes, we have less attributes than akhbar. Let's go to the following principle. Principle number 3.
The third principle concerning Allah's attributes. Allah's attributes may be divided into 2 kinds: attributes of affirmation and attributes of negation. Allah's attributes may be divided into attributes of affirmation and attributes of negation. Attributes of affirmation, as-sifat al-thubutiyya. As-sifat al-thubutiyya are those that Allah has affirmed for His own self in His book or on the tongue of His messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Okay, listen here, Wani, this is very important. Just like we said, the names is only to be taken from Qala Allah, Qala Rasuluh. Also the attributes, which are the affirmed attributes, are to be taken from Qala Allah, Qala Rasuluh. Allah said, and Prophet ﷺ said. So the attributes of Allah, they are also backed by Quran or Sunnah, or both. Go ahead.
All of them are attributes of perfection, having no deficiencies whatsoever, like life, knowledge, power, ascension over the throne, descent to the lowest heaven, His face, His 2 hands, etc.
And He actually giving you a mixture of attributes in terms of category-wise. So He giving you categories of that as-sifat al-dhatiyya, which is the essence attributes, which is always with Allah, and that is the life, the knowledge, the power, all of that is with Allah. Then He gave you some of those which are to do with the action, which is al-istiwa al-arsh, that is to rise above the throne. He gave you a different category, a cocktail of ayah, some attribute, also descending to the heaven. And then He gave you also some attributes regarding the essence, which is, because some of them are ma'nawiyah and some of them are khabariyah, as we're going to see. So the khabariyah and the why do we need to categorize all of that? Why do we just stick? Because the scholars have brought this in order to refute the argumentation of those who are deviant. Because those deviants, they had basically denied some of them all of the attributes, some of them some of the attributes, based upon such things that the scholars of Al-Sunnah had to show you the categories where these people had gone deviant. Which one of those categories of attributes that those people had denied. Okay? That's why the categorization was important. So, if we just put now, attributes of Allah. Okay, there are 2 categories now. One, affirmation. One is negation. Do you understand that? Affirmation. Affirmation of Allah is. Negation, Allah is not. Allah is not. That's the negation. Allah does not have a child, does not have a son, does not have a wife. Okay, that is the negation. We're going to talk about that. And then the affirmation. The affirmation also out of two categories. One which is called essence. The second one is called actions. So the affirmation is divided into two categories. Some is to do with the essence, like Allah Azza wa Jall's face, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's life. That's called the essence. And the one which is the other one is the actions. Like Allah descends down, Allah comes, Allah goes, Allah holds, Allah speaks. And we're going to see the speech as well. There's just two types. So anyway, essence and actions. The essence itself, scholars subdivide that. Essence which is khabari, and essence which is ma'nawi. What is khabari and what is ma'nawi? Essence ma'nawi, which is like, it's for the essence itself, like knowledge, power. But essence which is to do khabari, like the hands. Why do they say khabari? Because it's important to understand it's a hand that is a real hand, suitable to His Majesty. Okay? Those are the people who are Asha'ira, they negate that khabari. They only affirm the ma'nawi, which is to do with the essence, the face, the knowledge, the power, or not the face and the hands, so forth. Fadlan.
It is binding to affirm these for Allah the Exalted literally, in the way that is befitting to Him, based on both textual and intellectual evidence.
Okay, so we have textual from Quran and Sunnah evidence, and we have intellectual aql. That is to attribute those attributes to Allah in the way which is suitable to His Majesty. We're talking about now, remember, the attributes which are of affirmation. Okay? The attributes of affirmation, all of them are to be perfect. No deficiency in them, in any shape or form. Whether they are to do with the essence or whether they are to do with the actions. As for the textual, فَضَّلْ يَا أَحْمَدْ. Allah said, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا آمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَالْكِتَابِ الَّذِي نَزَّلَ عَلَى رَسُولِهِ والكتاب الذي أنزل من قبل ومن يكفر بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر فقد ضل ضلالا بعيدا. نعم.
O you who believe in Allah, His Messenger, the book that was sent down to Him, and the book that was sent down before that. And whoever disbelieves in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, or the last day, has gone far astray indeed.
Right. So here, Allah is telling the believers to believe in number one, Allah. Then His message. So when you believe in Allah, you have to believe in the attributes of Allah. So believing in Allah, so that's the textual evidence. Fadal ya Ahmed.
So believing in Allah, as mentioned in this verse, includes believing in His attributes, just as believing in the book that was sent down to His Messenger
Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Just as believing in the book that was sent down to His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam includes believing in the attributes of Allah that are mentioned in it. Also, believing in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as His Messenger includes believing in everything He reported on behalf of the one who sent Him, Allah the Mighty and Majestic.
As for the intellectual, so we believe in also when we believe in His Messenger, we believe in everything that He said regarding His law, which is whatever attributes He had given to His law, because He speaks from divine. وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He does not speak from His whims and desires. وَأَمَّا الْعَقْلُ as for intellectual,
Intellectual evidence. Verily Allah the Exalted has informed us about Himself, mentioning His attributes, and He is more knowledgeable about them than anyone else. And He is more honest in speech and more precise in His narrations than anyone else. So then it is obligatory to affirm His attributes without hesitation, as Allah Himself is the one who has informed us of them. Hesitation in accepting a report only occurs when the one reporting may be ignorant, or perhaps lying, or even incapable of expressing what he wants to say. All three of these faults are impossible to Allah the Mighty and Majestic. Thus, it is binding to accept everything he tells us about.
Did you understand the intellectual proof here? Intellectual proof. We know that the one who told us about his attributes is someone who cannot have the following faults that anybody else will have the faults. There could be a lie, and Allah is not a liar. Or it could be ignorant, Allah is not ignorant. Or Allah cannot express what he wants to say. A person can fall down, cannot really maybe. That's why he appoints solicitors, because he can't speak properly in front of the judge. And Allah is the most eloquent. Because Allah is the most eloquent speaker, and Allah is truthful, and Allah is the most knowledgeable, and whatever he had said, it has to be true. That's what it is. We should not hesitate to take these attributes. And also, the Prophet said,
and we believe similarly in the reports of the Prophet ﷺ that he conveyed from Allah. For verily, the Prophet ﷺ was the most knowledgeable of the people concerning his Lord, the most truthful of them in his narrations, the purest of them in his intentions, and the most eloquent of them. Therefore, it is binding on us to accept his reports as they are.
And that is clear cut. Let's go now to the negation attributes. So this is the affirmation. Allah is, no, Allah is not. Fadl.
Attributes of negation. As-sifat as-salbiyya. As-sifat as-salbiyya are those that Allah has declared himself free from, either in his book or on the tongue of his messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and all of them are attributes of deficiency and thus unbefitting to him. Examples of this are death, sleep, ignorance, forgetfulness, incapability, and fatigue. It is binding on us to negate them and not associate them with Allah as mentioned, while affirming their opposites as attributes of perfection. This is because whatever Allah has negated about his own self, then the intent is to negate them in order to affirm their opposite, not to merely negate them alone. This is so because negating something does not necessitate perfection, unless it implies affirming some kind of perfection, since negation alone is basically the absence of something, and the absence of something is nothing. So then it could not be considered something perfect. Negating an attribute could lead you to simply deny something, like if you said, the wall does not oppress anyone.
Okay, before you say that, please, last bit. So, from this we say, negation in itself is not praising. Do you understand what I'm saying? Jabir, how are you? You okay? Alhamdulillah. No wonder why you don't like us, mashallah. So, negation is not in itself an attribute, or you could say praising attribute. I'll give you an example. If a king came and you want to praise him, and you keep saying to him, you are not a tennis ball player, you are not a rubbish remover, you are not a person who washes the cars, is he going to be happy with those? No, I don't think so. Why you comparing with you? So negation in itself is not a praise. But when Allah negates something to him, he negates it in the sense that you want to believe in the opposite of it. So when he negates slumber, he's affirming what? Life. Do you understand that? It's not sleep. It's always alive. So when he negates ignorance, then he is affirming what? Knowledge. Perfect. If you don't do that, you're not really giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the right attributes. So he says here that النفي عدم, to negate is actually nothing, because you are removing something. And adam is not something that you could, be happy with. It's not a sign of perfection. It's removing something. And also he says, which is something I don't think the translator made a good translation. It says, al-adamu also, so negation, because that this is not suitable as a negation. And he gave you an example. A wall does not oppress. Does it come together? A wall is not a human being. It does. How can you say? So when you say the wall does not oppress, does that give more credit to the wall? Is it a better wall? No. A wall does not oppress. Even if it, what's that got to do with this? So negation sometimes cannot be suitable. When you negate something like that, Fadl, repeat that sentence. And because negation,
negating an attribute could lead you to simply deny something, like if you said, the wall does not oppress anyone. This does not necessitate that the wall is just and fair. Negating an attribute could also be understood as describing something as being incapable as well. As the poet once said, a small tribe that does not ever betray a trust, nor does it oppress the people a single bit. Another poet said, however my tribe, even though they are people of rich heritage, they are not evil in any way, nor not in the least manner. An example of this principle can be found in Allah's statement.
but basically that he's saying that even if you say that your people, they are from good lineage, and they are not going to the evil, but maybe because they are inferior and weak, that's why they're not doing evil. But Allah is the most powerful. And He's able to be doing this, for example, something which is no good, but He will not do it. So when you don't do it, because it's not because it's incapability, He's got the power to do it. But He will not do it because it's not suitable to Him. Fadl.
An example of this principle can be found in Allah's statement.
وتوكل على الحي الذي لا يموت.
And put your trust in Al-Hayy, the ever-living, the one who does not die. In this verse, Allah has negated death for Himself, which necessitates the attribute of perfect life.
By the way, you're going far away from your microphone, Ya Ahmed. Okay. Another example, وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا.
And your Lord does not oppress anyone.
You see the difference now when you go closer? So just think like this, Ahmed. That's how you are. It gives a big difference. Yeah.
Negating oppression includes an affirmation of the attribute of perfect justice.
Ahmed, can you stick to this, please, next time? You are perfect in sound. Right. وَلَا يَظْلِمُ رَبُّكَ أَحَدًا is now negating the oppression, which is an indication of His complete and perfect justice. Fadl.
A third example can be found in his statement.
وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعْجِزَهُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَلَا فِي الْأَرْضِ.
And nothing in the heavens or on earth is beyond Allah's capability. Allah has negated incapability, and this implies perfect knowledge and capability. Thus He says after that,
إِنَّهُ كَانَ عَلِيمًا قَدِيرًا.
verily He is all-knowing, ever capable.
You see here the ilm and the qudra, knowledge and power. This is to encounter anything in your mind when Allah said nothing will make Him unable and to do anything what He wants in the day and the heavens and the earth. So He had negated this incapability, and which entailed two things: perfect power and perfect knowledge. Because incapability's reasons, it could be ignorance, that is, you're not doing the right thing to do the capability, or it could be because you are not having the proper power. And that's why He said at the end, Haliman Qadir. No, I have knowledge and I have power. Fadal.
This is because incapability is due to either ignorance of the reasons for the existence of things, or a lack of power. So due to the perfect knowledge of Allah, the Exalted, and His capability, nothing in the heavens or on earth is beyond His capability. Through this example, we learn that the negation of these attributes necessitates an extension of His perfection.
Right, yeah, right. Alhamdulillah, now we have gone to the third principle. We finished it. We're going to the fourth principle. Well,
The fourth principle concerning Allah's attributes. Points of wisdom behind the negation of certain attributes. Allah's established attributes are attributes of due praise and perfection. And the more variety that is found in their meanings, the more apparent the perfection of the one being described is.
okay, so in this fourth principle, he's talking about the category of the sifat al-thubutiyya, the affirming attribute. Allah is and Allah is. He says that all of them, they are sifatu madhin wa kamal. They are the attributes of praising and perfection. And all the time, if they are many, this shows you that this would be described with is the ultimate, the perfect. So now, go ahead, Ahmad.
Likewise, Allah's attributes of affirmation that He informed us about are greater in number than the attributes He negated, as is known. His attributes of negation are normally mentioned in only 3 instances.
Okay, so it shows that, as I said before, an-nafyu adamun. To negate is nothing because you're taken away. And that is why Allah described Himself to glorify Himself by more of affirmation attributes, not by negation. Affirmation attributes are so many. Negation attributes are limited, and they are for 3 reasons they've been brought. Number 1,
Firstly, they are mentioned to clarify the generality of His perfection.
generality of perfection. But there's nothing like unto Him, and He's all hearing and all seeing. Brother,
This can be found in His statement,
لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ.
there is nothing similar to Him.
By the way, this kaf, there is nothing like unto Him. Now it's in English, but in Arabic it is the kaf al-tashbih. Kaf means gives you similarity. Mithlihi also like Him. So Allah is using the kaf al-tashbih and the word which is similar, and they are similar to each other. What is the wisdom and the reason behind this? Scholars have given many sayings, but the closest of all, that here is an emphasis. So the kaf is to emphasize the mithl. Kalaysa kamithlihi shay is to emphasize there's nothing like unto it. It's emphasis. So it's not to do with the kaf and the mithl as some of the interpretations of the scholars. I'm not going to go through them, but there are many. So basically, so this is to show the general perfection of Allah. Number 2, ayah وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ or كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Fadlan.
And there is nothing comparable to Him.
Second reason, Fadli Ahmad.
Secondly, they are mentioned to negate the false claims made against Him by the liars.
Okay, so the liars give something to Allah, and Allah encountered that by saying, I'm not. So they attribute something to Allah, and Allah said, I am not. Subhanahu an yakuna lahu walad. Glorified be Allah is going to be having a son. Because they attribute a son to Him. Christians, He's got a son. So Allah said here, and thou للرحمن ولدا وما ينبغي للرحمن أن يتخذ ولدا. نعم.
They have claimed that the All-Merciful had a son, and it is not befitting for the All-Merciful to have a son.
So you look at the reputation here to them. Deniers, the liars, the hypocrites, the kuffar. So this is the second reason. So the first reason we said, Allah mentions the negating attributes because to show the general perfection of Allah's perfection. And secondly, the reason is to encounter the sayings of those who are liars, those who are kuffar, attributing Allah to something. Allah says, I'm not. Third one, further.
Thirdly, they are mentioned to repel an inappropriate conclusion about His perfection relating to a specific affair.
So Allah Azza wa Jal, He wants to eliminate any wrong thoughts when He talks about Himself for the perfection, that maybe that wrong thought can come to you when Allah describes Himself with a perfection. Give an example. وَمَا خَلَقَنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ.
And we have not created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them for play.
So Allah Azza wa Jal, He could have just said, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ as in other verses. But here in this verse, He is eliminating the thought which has had already been mentioned, okay, had been already been mentioned. But Allah Azza wa Jalla created heavens and earth not because of we are for amusement. No, there's a hikmah behind this. I'm not creating it just for it's it's a game that I'm doing. You know that the Mu'tazila, they don't believe that paradise and hell are existing at the moment. Do you know why? They say that this is abath. To believe Allah had created heavens and created Jannah and hellfire, that's just a waste of time. Because there is nobody there to be judged. So Jannah will be just like this, empty, and hellfire is going to be cooking for nothing. There's nobody there. They're using their brain to tell you. And Allah, when He said, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ. Allah does not create heaven and earth, and He's not really wasting His time. The same thing, He did not create the heavens and earth. But we encounter that by clear text about Allah really said about Fir'aun, النار يعرضون عليها. Allah really talks about the people of Fir'aun, غدوا وعشيا, that they are cooked in the fire already morning and evening. Also the Prophet said when Allah created heaven, it is to Jibreel. But we have clear text to encounter that argument anyway. And also Allah said وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِنْ لُغُوبٍ. Meaning,
and verily we created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 days, and no fatigue touched us.
Because you think that, oh, Allah created heavens and earth, there's going to be tiredness. That's what the Jews had done. The Jews, they had set off. Why? Because Allah relaxed on that day. So they have to relax as well. How can you say Allah is relaxing? So Allah says, وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ. Allah created heavens and earth in 6 days. Is it 6 days or 6,000 years? Because each day equivalent to 1,000 years in Allah Azza wa Jal. And that's also a difference among the scholars. The correct opinion, 6 days are 6 days. And here Allah created, because they say that 6 days, that's 6,000. And then the new scholars, they say 6,000, which is matches what the geologists had said, that for these things to come about, it needs about 6,000 years of a reaction. We don't want to link this to this, and then later on they find out it's a wrong information. What happened to your iman? Don't go down. We don't know. It's not real facts. There are 6 days. Allah willed for those things in the earth and the heaven to be in 6 days. It's not because He needs 6 days. Okay? He could have just done it in kun, be. There it is. But He willed for it to be in 6 days. And each day contains a specific creation. Mountains, when was it created? Okay, rivers, when were they created? In a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. No fatigue, no tiredness. That means, which here, no fatigue, it means what? The perfect power. Because sometimes the person, when he is doing something and then he's no fatigue, no tiredness, later on he ends up with a back pain. That's nothing to do with Allah. So he's no fatigue and at the same time, perfect power. Negation and always affirmation of the opposite. Fadla.
The fifth principle concerning Allah's attributes. They can be divided into 2 kinds: permanent, continuous attributes, and chosen actions.
Unlike permanent. Was that permanent what?
Permanent, continuous.
In Arabic it's called dhatiya. Okay, so now these are to do with the essence. So they are with Allah all the time. Essence. With Allah all the time. Continuous, you could say, but they are essence. Dhatiya. So let's just go to the continuous one. So we're still talking about the what? The affirmation, or the attributes of affirmation. Fadlan.
Allah's affirmed attributes might either be permanent attributes that He is always to be described with, or actions that He performs when He likes. His permanent attributes, as-sifat al-dhatiyya. As-sifat al-dhatiyya are those He never ceases to be described with, like having knowledge, power, hearing, sight, honor, wisdom, highness, and greatness. Some of them are attributes that are only known to us through his reports, like his face, 2 hands and 2 eyes. His chosen actions, as-sifat al-fi'liya, as-sifat al-fi'liya are the actions that are related to his will. If he wants, he does them, and if he does not want to do them, he does not do them, like his ascent over the throne and his descent to the lowest heaven.
Right, so we got now 2 categories of the affirmation or the affirmed attributes, dhatiyatun wa fi'liya, continuous to Allah Azza wa Jal, always with Allah, which is like the power, the hearing and all of that, and those we call them al-ma'nawiyah. And also from that as well, al-khabariyah, like the face and the hands, and the 2 hands and the 2 eyes. Then the action one, which is that when Allah wills, He will do it. And if Allah does not will to do it, He will not do it. Like rising above the throne, descending from the heavens, and so on and so forth. Go ahead.
Also, an attribute may also be a combination of both a permanent attribute and a chosen action.
So there's a third category here. So the one which is, we said, dhatiyatun wa fi'liya, and one third one, both dhatiyya and fi'liya. Continuous and could be action whenever he wants us to do it. And that is, go ahead.
Like his speech, for example. His speech is, in a basic and more general understanding, a permanent, continuous attribute, since Allah the Exalted did not stop, nor will He stop speaking. With this, the specific things He has said are considered chosen actions, since they are related to His will. He speaks whenever He wants, saying whatever He wants. This can be understood from His statement,
إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون.
His affair is such that whenever He wants something, He merely says be, and it is. And every attribute that is connected to His will is in accordance with His wisdom.
It's very important, Ikhwan, that each action of Allah Azza wa Jal that He does is linked to His wisdom. There is something there, whether we know it or we don't know it. Now, just want to make sure that you understand this. Allah, when He spoke, it doesn't mean He did not speak before. He's always speaking. So the speech is one of the attributes which is continuous, which is of the essence. But also Allah Azza wa Jal, regarding particular matters or incidents, He willed to speak. For example, when He spoke about Musa, to Musa alayhi salam, when he came to the tree, he saw the fire, so Allah Azza wa Jal spoke to him. Okay, so this speech is, at that time it took place. At that incident took place. Okay, so that speech took that. And also some of the speech that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes after the intention and the decree has been done. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about things that happen, that means they happened by His will and already finished, and Allah spoke about them after that. You understand me? Spoke them out after the action. And there's so many examples in the Quran regarding this issue. Fadl ya Ahmed.
This wisdom may or may not be known to us, as we may be unable to grasp it. However, we know with conviction that He does not want anything that is not in accordance with His wisdom. This is alluded to in His statement.
Say it, Ibn Ahmed.
وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. And you will not want to draw near to your Lord unless Allah wants that. Verily Allah is all-knowing, all-wise.
But Allah Azza wa Jalla, He said in Surah Al-Mujadala, أو المجادلة, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي تُجَادِلُكَ. Allah had heard. So Allah heard, and then He spoke about when He had heard. You understand that? Allah heard, and then after He had heard, He spoke that He had heard. The action, the decree is finished, Allah speaks up after it. So the speech is also linked to when Allah Azza wa wants. Fine. Tfaddal ya Ahmad, for the last principle, inshallah, that we discuss a bit today.
The sixth principle concerning Allah's attributes.
Sorry, 6 and 7. Tfaddal.
The sixth principle concerning Allah's attributes, the dangers of tamtheel and takyif. Affirming his attributes
Okay,
requires
hang on. To stop here because we don't have time for the questions. We'll speak about them inshallah. طيب. So we know that the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the highest. Can I ask you, is my following statement correct or wrong? Any perfect attribute that the human can be described with, it must be an attribute of Allah. Is that correct statement or not? Any perfect attribute that the human can obtain, then Allah is having priority to have that. I'm saying every perfect attribute that us can obtain and have, then Allah has a priority. Allah will have it by priority. Is that correct? Okay, I'm not saying right or wrong. You said right. Okay. You say no. Why? Because if you said yes, I'm not going to ask them why. You said no, why? ليس كمثله شيء. But I mean, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-wise. Correct?
Yeah.
And the human being is wise. About the perfection, which is correct, by the way. What you just said is correct. And I'll give you an example which makes it even illustrated better. But let me go to the second statement. This is one of the tricky one. All attributes that the human being which can have, and they are imperfection to him, Allah could never have them by priority. Is that correct or wrong? Do you understand what I'm saying? Every imperfection, every bad attribute that the human being can have or obtain, Allah should not have it by priority.
Okay.
Huh?
This is more
Correct?
Yeah, this is correct.
So both statements are wrong. I'll prove it. From the bad characteristics that the human being should never ever have is arrogance. But Allah is named Al-Mutakabbir. And from his attribute, Al-Mutakabbir. There's no difference among the scholars regarding this name. I've never heard of a person's name, Abdul Mutakabbir. That's a name for you to think about. Abdul Mutakabbir. Name. No difference among the scholars. It's the name from Allah. Al-Mutakabbir is imperfection for us. But for Allah, His veil is kibriyah. Because we haven't got the quality to be mutakabbir. We come from what? The clock. Father and mother. Then grow up and carry the poo between our legs. True enough. And then we die. We rot in the grave. How can we have it? Arrogance or pride? No. Only for Allah. The pride is only for Allah. There's nothing like on earth. Second, or the first thing when I said, you see, for us, to sleep is perfection. For Allah is imperfection. Do you understand me? For us, perfection for us is have to sleep. Perfection doesn't have to get tired. That's our human being. Perfection. You have to sleep. But for Allah, it's always imperfection. So it's not correct statements. Both statements, we have to be careful when we say them. Right. What else can we say here? I'll give you the time for questions now, inshallah, at the moment. What time is the Maghrib? Because it's pushing early now. Is it 5 past?
Quarter past.
أذان أخي quarter past؟ ما تقرأ بالجماعة يا إخواني متفقة يقول لي من الجماعة ها؟ 9 o'clock? Give me the What time is sunset in Bedford?
In Bedford today, the sun will set at 9:08 p.m.
9:09. طيب يا إخوان يلا we have another ما شاء الله good 10 minutes to ask questions. يلا محمد. If you've done any question and go from the online. تفضل يا فيصل.
Mine is off topic, is that okay?
Hang on. We want to know the names and the attributes. Anybody would like to share us something regarding the names and the attributes? It's very fascinating to know how many people are ignorant regarding those principles, which are very important to know them. And very important to know how to call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how to describe Him. Because the more you know about Allah Azza wa Jal, the more you are closer to Him, the more you fear Him as well. The more you are having more hope that Allah Azza wa Jal will pardon you. Now, Fadl Ibn.
With the affirmation, you mentioned that there's essence and then the action, and then there's some aspects of the essence. Which one was it? I didn't get it first. I don't know.
معنوية أم خبرية؟ معنوية أم خبرية؟ معنوية is to do like the قدرة, العلم, knowledge. خبرية, Allah spoke about Himself, that He's got a face, got two eyes, got two hands. Yeah. No. Well done. Right. Okay, Faisal. Looks like there's no questions yet. Go ahead with your question.
It's on Salah. Sheikh, if I enter the masjid, right, and I enter late.
Wrong. Wrong. Tafadhal.
Oh, so I'm saying, so I enter the masjid late, and after the Imam Taslim now, I got up to finish my prayer, and while I was doing that, I made a mistake that required sujood as-sahw. The question to you, Sheikh, should I make sujood as-sahw, or does the Imam's prayer cover for me, even though the mistake was made after I taslim down?
No, the Imam covers for you until he had finished his prayer. He covers for you, even though he is your sutra after you leave, but that is being indicated as in the hadith that the companion did not move even if they are late. He's your sutra even if he leaves, so you don't have to move to a new sutra. But in terms of mistakes, no, he does not cover for you. So you have to, Wallahu a'lam, and to be on the ihtiyat, more cautious to make this sujood as-sahw. If anything, before that, before the Imam had made the salutation, then he will be a guarantor for you. Now,
Follow on from that question.
follow on for the question. We have a follow-up from this question.
So when you, so someone joins from a prayer and the Imam says to sleep, and he's carried on from that prayer, can you walk in front of him? If the Imam is sitting?
So if a person had come late and he has got a rak'ah to do also, then can the person move in front of it? Of course he can, because still the sutra of the Imam is sutra. Because we've taken this by deduction. We looked at the companions and number of incidents when they were late. None of them had moved, they stayed in their place. And the one which is the most clearest one is that when Hadith Abu Bakr, the Prophet ﷺ, he made takbir ihram, and then he remembered he was in janaba. So he pointed to them, stay put. He went to make ghusl. That takes a bit of time, 2 minutes, maybe 8 minutes. Ghusl. And he went back. So his sutra is still holding, even he left. None of the companions went forward, because he is between him and the wall, there's about 1.5 meters, and between him and the people, 1.5 meters. And the Prophet ﷺ said, always close to the sutra. He did not, the first row did not move. Okay, that's a proof that the sutra is holding. Wallahu a'lam.
That's the sutra of the Imam you're talking about.
Sutra of the Imam is holding for the ma'moom. So even if the Imam has finished his prayer and you have a rak'ah to do or whatever also, his sutra is still holding.
As for the people praying behind him, can you walk in front of those?
Yes, he's still holding. He couldn't walk in front of anybody. But when we say the sutra is holding, and that is to facilitate as well, because people, you will never stop coming late. And imagine that each one has got now, after the Imam is finished his own sutra, nobody will move. They'll be stranded. That can't go. But look at the spaciousness. No, move. Like Abdullah ibn Abbas when he came to join the prayer with his donkey. This is his car, by the way. He just went into the road and he parked his donkey and then he prayed. We know the donkey, if it passes between you and your sutra, the prayer is invalid. But he did not pass between the Prophet of Allah, the Imam, and the Sutra. He passed between what? The Musallin. Ikhwani, wallahi, the Musallin. If they don't have knowledge, they do a lot of chaos, especially in the Haram. You know, when you are coming to the Haram, and if you are late, Imam started the prayer, and you want to go between the rows, some of the people ignorantly put his hands. So I just put his hand, actually there's no sutra. While he's still praying, no sutra. Sutra Imam. So teach them, and teach them when you go, as you go.
But Sheikh,
If you don't want to end up somebody putting a foot for you in your face.
Sheikh,
Nah.
to avoid that what you just say, because sometimes people they might fight you because they'll put your hands up and then you still carry on. Can we just put a sutra just to for those who doesn't know, so that to avoid
Don't
that
do
case?
It's not right. Talking about if you are behind the Imam, don't put sutra. You're making a wrong information for them. Don't make a sutra. In Haram, ya Sheikh, you're going to make a mile between the Musallin. A mile, not a mile, 1 mile. MashaAllah. Haram. In Medina as well. Can't even see the end of the road. So he's only going to put his hand and going to put a sutra for him. I'm not going to walk. But if it is voluntary praying, or he's praying on his own, not behind the Imam, I should avoid the sutra. Regardless of what. Should avoid the sutra. Now, there was somebody asked me, I want to share with you, and I just remembered it now, and maybe the answer came to my mind right now. I said to him, I can't answer that question. People who are caring about the sutra, they came up with this called clever sutra. A clever sutra. So, he wants to pass, especially in the Haram. And it's not the Imam is praying, it's each one praying on his own. Tahiyat al-Masjid or whatever, or Sunnah. So he is now, somebody's blocking his path. Can't see, how can he go? There's him to the wall, somebody behind him. So what he does, he said, he's got with him all the time his scarf, for example. So he put his scarf from his hand all the way to touch the ground, and he passed beyond it. While he's carrying the sutra. Do you understand? The clever sutra. He puts it there and passes, and then he takes it and he removes it. And he asked me, is that correct or not? I said, I've never heard of this. And now it's come to my mind, Ikhwani. The sutra, it has to be mufakka al-shakhs, to be separate from the person. It's not something that you're going to carry and you put it, carry it in your hand. Something mufakka. You have to put it, leave it. So if you have something to put it and take it, but just like passing by, they do like this, they said to me. Well, they're walking like this. They're walking with this. So the sutra is walking with that. They don't let go of that. I said, I'll answer it later on. And I'm just coming to my mind, it has to be mufakir. It has to be leaving it. You could leave it and pass, and then, so you have to have a cone or something, but the scarf is going to go down. There's not enough height. Now,
Sheikh, so in the issue of this sutra, is the saying of some people saying that if you can pass more than an arm's length of you are allowed to pass in front of the person, right?
so is he saying, you're asking about a person who hasn't got a sutra? Where can I maybe pass? Well, if he hasn't got a sutra, don't pass between him and his prostration. So leave about 1.5 meters between him, between his legs, feet, and between his prostration. 1.5 meters, and then go beyond it, if he hasn't got a sutra. But if he has a sutra, do not pass, even if you stay for 40 seconds, 40 hours, 40 days, 40 weeks, 40 years, 40. If somebody said stay 40, don't pass. What? So you bring your sutra, put, pass, and then take it. But not carry it with you. No. Allahu Akbar. Any other questions, Kwani? Like, do you have questions from the online?
How do we determine when something is a name and attribute of Allah or it's just an attribute?
How do we determine that it's the name of Allah and attribute? Okay. Well, the name of, as we're going to inshallah discuss it, it's going to come to the last principle when we come to the, actually before the last. And also the last, which is still kafiyya. and also there is no tamthil or takbir, that the attribute, the name Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He named Himself with it, and it is like ala itlaqih, with its generality. So that name is being al-Raqib, al-Atid, al-Mateen, al-Qawi. So He's been mentioning these names ala itlaqih. What is the attribute, as I said, could be attribute to do with the essence or with the actions. And not every fi'l you make the ism al-fa'il as to be a name. From every action, the name of the action is to be a fa'il, to be a name. Can't. So how can you derive from the face a name? Al-wajh? Can't. This is an attribute. Can't derive that. Okay? As for al-rahma, it's derived from al-rahim. Al-maghfirah from al-ghafur or al-ghaffar. So the name is ala itlaqi. The attributes, and also you have to be, you have to know Arabic. Not to be an Arab, to know Arabic. Because some of the Arabs are not really knowing Arabic properly as well. To know the Arabic language. The distinction between the name and the sifa. It's to do with qawa'id as well. So the names are, and by the way, the scholars had differed in the way that they collect the names, they gather them. So for example, Ibn Hazm rahimahullah does not accept any name which is mudaf. Any name which is like the mudaf, he will not accept it. He doesn't accept, for example, even the names which are being derived, like al-baqi, al-badi'. He does not accept it. So you have to know how the manahij, the ways of the scholars have gathered the names. In front of here, some of my notes here, that المناهج التي اعتمدها أهل السنة في جمع الأسماء هي أربعة. That the ways that the scholars have gathered the names are to be 4 ways or 4 methods. Number 1, which is to abide yourself with the hadith of Abu Hurairah mentioned in Imam al-Tirmidhi, which is hadith da'if, unauthentic. It's not authentic. Second methodology is that to abide ourselves with those names which are being mentioned ala al-itlaq, or its generality. This is Ibn Hazm, so he does not accept, as I said, which is being derived, like al-baqi. Third methodology is to widen the names, so they will take a name from every attribute, and from every action is a name. And this is the madhab of Ibn Arabi, Ibn al-Arabi, or Ibn al-Murtada wa Shirmasi. Those as well, they come more than what is supposed to. The fourth methodology, which is the correct one, is tawassut, which is in the middle. And that is to abide ourselves with the name which has been mentioned, but do not really make us what tawassu'. So they have given the definition of al-Asma al-Husna, as Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah had said in his definition. And they have made it 2 conditions. That Quran and Sunnah, one of them is to mention that name. Number 2, the correct name, if it is to be said, is in generality. So it has to have the ultimate husna, beauty and praise when it is by itself. Doesn't need any help, that name. Mention the Quran Sunnah, and when you mix it in generality, it will be praising to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam. By this, alhamdulillah.
Sheikh,
Now,
so for example, if we have...
we have to stop here, Sheikh.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت